So I'm going to do a little testing of the waters this morning to see how many of you are like me. I know you're probably going to wonder where I'm going with this, but that's okay. Most of you wonder about me all the time. How many here like the superhero action movies? Right. How many here are into Marvel Cinematic Universe? Some of you are like, oh, you heathen, Pastor. If you don't watch it, I don't blame you. There's definitely some good reason for some not to. But I've been into the Marvel Universe, and it's quite fascinating to me because our culture has this fascination with superheroes, right, for many, many years. And so I know Infinity War just hit the theaters recently. I have not seen it. Do not spoil it for me. Jared, keep your mouth shut. So, the Marvel Universe, just to get an idea how much our culture has a fascination with superheroes, if I counted them right, there's 19 movies thus far, if what I counted right, since Iron Man was released in May of 2008. 19 movies. The production costs of those 19 movies are $3.63 billion. And the global box office gross of those is $16.14 billion. Do you think we have a fascination with superheroes? Maybe. It looks like Infinity War is trending towards being the best or second, Probably going to hit $2 billion. It's trending up as it may be the top one of their universe so far. We have a fascination with superheroes, and I actually labeled this morning's message, Mother's Day Superhero 101. And let's be honest, moms have powers that us guys, we can be envious of sometimes. There's things a mom can do that we just I don't even know how you pull it off, moms. And, and so I want to show you a little video about you moms as superheroes. Last year we saw installment 1 of this, and so this is the sequel. This is the epic Mother's Day trailer. Maybe. Oh, please. There you go. Hit play for me, Emily.
Last year, she amazed her family. But now...
Mom, my science project is due tomorrow.
Jeremy hates me.
When chaos strikes...
Mom, I want to play Xbox.
No, it's my turn.
Her true powers will be revealed.
Hey, honey, your mom said she's going to stop by later. Is that
okay? What? Do you hear that?
I don't hear anything.
Exactly.
I'm painting.
Natalie, what did you do? How did she know?
Gifted by God with the power to read minds.
I don't have any homework. No.
I mean, I did all my homework.
No.
Well, I did some of it.
No.
Fine, I haven't started yet.
There's the truth.
The wisdom to restore peace.
He said, that's it. We're finished. So sick of this texting.
What? Let me see that. Wait, this says sick of this testing, not texting.
All right. He was taking the ACT. Thanks, Mom.
The insight to see the future.
I forgot to think of a science project.
Yeah, I thought you might.
Yes!
With a burst of unlimited capacity. And her secret weapon, the look.
Yoink!
Hey. Oh, come on, Billy!
These abilities combine to form the ultimate example of warmth, tenderness, and dignity.
my new ride.
Grandma!
Mom?
Can we get another round of applause for our moms? Now, most of us, if we're husbands, know that that look not only works on the kids. Well, it is Mother's Day, and I'm going to tread lightly this morning because for the first time I'm daring to preach the Proverbs 31 woman. And so I debated about moving the drum shield down here and preaching behind that, but I'll refrain if you promise not to throw anything at me. I'm getting some maybe looks, okay. I'm going to look at Proverbs 31 this morning, and before I get into this though, I want to say that this passage has at times been used to kind of bash women over the head to say, listen, this is a standard, you're not holding up to it. And it's really meant to be an encouragement. This comes at the end of Proverbs, and if you look at Proverbs 30 and 31, they kind of are a synopsis in a sense of the whole book of Proverbs. And so when they look at this Proverbs 31 woman, what we see is this is supposed to be the embodiment of, in a sense, the wisdom that is throughout the book of Proverbs. And so this is an encouragement for ladies that you can, and many times do, embody the wisdom that God intends for us to have. Now, many times we focus on the latter half of this book of Proverbs. We're going to actually start at the beginning, and I'm going to give you what I see here is two different women in a sense, in the first half of Proverbs 31 and the second. And what they seem to bring into this picture is they bring into a picture a woman who teaches and a woman who models certain principles to the world. And so in the first half, we see a woman who teaches. And ladies, whether you are a mom, a grandma, maybe you're a Sunday school teacher, if you're involved with kids or the big kids you call your husbands, at any point, you know that there's times when you're called upon to teach, to offer the wisdom of your years and your time with the Lord, and that motherly instinct that seems to always know. And you know what I'm talking about. I've been trying to work on a diet, and I haven't done super great the last month or so. If I cheat, Wendy can smell chocolate on my breath from 35 feet away. You had M&Ms today. Man, how does she know? And so, stand next to the goat. She would still smell it, Mike. And so what I want to look at this morning first is the side of the teaching. And so if you would turn with me, we're going to be in Proverbs 31 all morning. And we can just camp out right there. Proverbs 31, and I'll be reading from the ESV. It tells us this: the words of King Lemuel, an oracle that his mother taught him. So listen, this is something his mom taught, this king. Now, we don't know who this king was exactly. It seems to be a king outside of Israel. We don't know for sure. But that being said, this is an oracle, and it's included in the book of Proverbs for us. It says this: what are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb? What are you doing, son of my vows? Do not give your strength to women, your ways to those who destroy kings. Now, I'm going to talk about women this morning. Now, it starts right off the bat. Don't give yourself to women. Now, we have to understand the concept here. When it says women, what this proverb is referring to is the kind of women that don't exemplify the Proverbs 31 woman. We're talking about a king, and what do kings have a habit of doing? They have it, in this day and age, they had a habit of obtaining wives. Many, many, many wives. Solomon was one of the worst, right? And wives and concubines and stuff. And they literally had a woman for every day over a 2 or 3 year period. And his mother to this king is saying, listen, do not give yourself, do not give your strength, do not give the best part of yourself to women who are not in the right place. She said, this is not good for a king. Goes on to say, and so as we talk about that, what this shows is the woman who teaches, I'm going to give you 3 things. And the woman who teaches first where to invest and where not to invest the best of yourselves. And what do I mean by that in a practical terms? One of the things I see my wife do regularly is she corrects our children. Not that they ever need correcting, because they're not angels, let's be honest. She corrects them all the time. But one of the things she does is when kids get into a fight and they're fighting over something as an adult, you're like, this is really not important, guys. What is she doing? My wife is giving them instruction on where to invest themselves. Do not pour yourself into an argument over who gets the last bowl of that type of cereal. Well, that's not one that we usually have. But you know what I mean? We give direction as parents, and moms especially. This is a calling that you have to teach others around you where to invest yourself, pour your energy, your life into. And so this mother to the king is saying, listen, you don't pour yourself into don't get into all the wives and stuff. It's going to distract you. And as parents and moms, you can direct your children into, hey, listen, don't pour yourself into this thing. It's really not worth investing yourself in. Invest in this. And so we see that's the first thing that a mother teaches. Proverbs 31 goes on to say, it's not for kings, so Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, or for rulers to take strong drink, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed, and pervert the rights of the afflicted. Give strong drink to the one who is perishing, and wine to those in bitter distress. Let them drink and forget their poverty, and remember their misery no more. Now that's some interesting advice. If you take that at surface value, you're like, okay, this mom's telling the king, all the poor people and down and out in your kingdom, go get them drunk. I want you to catch the heart. Now she says, first of all, it's not for a king. Listen, she is teaching her son that you, as a man of authority and a man of responsibility, have a responsibility that you need to choose to live in a holy way. You need to set yourself apart. You don't get lost in drunkenness because, listen, you make bad decisions. Now, we know this is true with alcohol. If you get drunk, you're going to make bad decisions. Now, I know there are people out there that, I worked for a guy that he self-medicated. He had a bad back, and he was one of those friendly guys when he was drunk. But the reality is we continually make bad decisions. She's saying, listen, this is not for you. Now, when she says, give strong drink to the one who is perishing, I want you to catch what she's saying. She's saying, in that day and age, they did not have the medicines. When someone is on hospice, in our culture, we give them things to make them comfortable. We have drugs like morphine and stuff that are good in those times when we're getting ready to pass on to the time after this life, whether it's in heaven or hell. And what she's saying is, listen, comfort those who are perishing. In that day and age, that's what they had. Day and age, that's what they had. They had alcohol. And so it was a reasonable thing. She's like, listen, bring comfort, let them drink and forget. Give them the comfort they need. But it's not for you. A person of responsibility, this is not for you. So the second thing that a mother of a Proverbs 31 woman teaches is holy living and responsibility. She says, first of all, you have a responsibility to take care of those under you. And we're going to get into more of that. And you have a responsibility to live holy. As a man with a responsibility, a man with authority and a man who's in leadership, you have responsibility to live holy before the Lord. And so that's the second thing. And then the last part of this section, it says, open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of those who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and needy. And so she's saying, listen, not only do you bring comfort to those who are struggling and who are on the tail end of life, listen, speak out. Be a king who cares about the people in the trenches, the people on the streets that don't have anything. Speak out for them. Be an advocate. And so we see the third thing that this Proverbs 31 woman teaches is to serve and speak for those in need. And those three, I think, are really key things that we can pass on to our children. To pass on where to invest ourselves. Invest yourself in the good things of the kingdom of God. You need holy living. and you need to live responsibly with the things that are entrusted to you. And we should serve and speak out for those in need. And so we see all of this in the first half of Proverbs 31. Now in the second half, we move into a model of a Proverbs 31 woman. And the verse I read earlier says, "An excellent wife, who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he'll have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life." You see right away as we look at this model that this woman that he is speaking of, that the writer is speaking of, is one who invests herself in her husband. She gives him a reason to trust her. Now, I can speak as a man. There's nothing near as valuable to me as the fact that I can trust my wife so much. I trust her with the care of my children when I'm gone. I trust her with the care of our finances, and we kind of we do this trade back and forth, where I do the finances, the bills for a while, and she doesn't, and we've kind of went back and forth. But I trust her with everything, right? I trust her with the stewardship of our house. She tells me, hey, we need this thing. I trust that she has discerned that to be what we truly need. And this is what we're saying. She focuses and becomes a trustworthy woman. Now, Proverbs goes on to say this: she seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. Now, this passage, this part of it particularly, has been, I think, used wrongly in the past. Some women have taken this like, man, if I'm a homemaker and I don't have some way that I'm making money for my family, I'm some sort of failure. And some women have taken it, well, if I'm out working, providing for my family, but I'm not necessarily at home preparing the food, I'm somewhat of a failure. But what this is saying is, listen, it's saying she's not lazy. Now, there is nothing honorable, man or woman, in being lazy. Some people, maybe you are here, I don't know, woman or man, you need to hear that. There's nothing honorable in being lazy. There are times when God calls on you to do more. I often told stories from my many, many jobs I've had, because there are times when I've had to work 3 jobs, 4 jobs to keep up with the finances. And it just is what it is. And all the while, my wife will toil at home and do her garden and all the things, and she's doing that again. There's nothing honorable in being lazy. And what we see in this Proverbs 31 woman is a woman who does her part. She does her part to help her husband provide. She's trying to take care of the home. She is a good helpmate that sees this as a partnership. Now, how that plays out in your life, I don't know. Maybe your calling is to be at home with your kids. Maybe your calling is to work, or maybe it's somewhere in between. But the issue is, are you doing your part? It goes on to say she dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. I want to stop right there. One of the things I see often in women is you don't give yourself enough credit. It says she perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Some of you need to hear this morning that the work you do in your home and for your family is of great value. Do not belittle what you do. The enemy will come along and tell you you're not doing enough. But let me tell you, if you get a specific thing like, I am supposed to do this, if you feel in your soul like, man, I should step up and maybe help in this particular way, that may be the Spirit, because the Spirit is always very precise. But if what you feel is this constant condemnation that, I'm just not doing good enough, maybe I'll try a little harder, I'm not doing good enough, I can tell you that is not the Spirit of God, that is the spirit of the enemy. Some of you need to hear this verse. You need to hear that your merchandise, the things you do, are profitable. Good for your family. You bless your husband as you toil. You bless your children. Goes on to say she dresses herself with strength, makes her arms strong. And said, her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hands to the distaff, and her hands hold to the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. I said we have our team going to Thailand, and there was one particular pastoral couple that really struck Wendy and I. They pastored a really small church, and I want to get your mind around what I mean by small church. Their home was like, hey, one section of the fellowship hall, maybe. That was also the church. And she showed us this garden and was talking to us about how elaborately they had to put up, makeshift what they can find, fencing and stuff, trying to keep the animals out, trying to grow produce and stuff. And it was just such a hard thing. And the chickens are getting in there and they're eating stuff and they're really struggling to keep this thing going. And we're like, wow, she's going through a lot for her family. And she says, no, I'm doing this so I can take this as gift to the neighbors. And so I have permission to tell them about Jesus. Do you see the difference? She toiled, she labored, not just for her family, but she was that burden for her neighbors down the street who did not know Jesus. And that is what we see with this Proverbs 31 woman. It's not just that she's toiling, helping her family. She is looking for ways to reach out into the community God has given her. Now, I don't know what that looks like for you. If you're like my wife and you're a soccer mom, maybe that's the other soccer moms that God has called you to reach out into some way. Or, maybe it's your neighbor, or maybe it's someone down the street. I don't know what it is. But God has called each of us, men too, to reach beyond just our families, because God is concerned about the rest of the world. Too many Christians, we get to that point where it's like, well, I got my ticket stamped. I'm ready to go to heaven, and we don't realize that God really cares. He cares that your neighbors are perishing and going to hell. And so we see this woman reaching out to those around her. Goes on to say in verse 21, she's not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. You see the provision there? She's making sure her kids have got their stuff. This is when your kids are running out the door. It's the dead of winter. You got your boots on? Got your hat, your gloves? This is the day in and day off stuff of mom, taking care of your family. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known at the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. Now, I've heard preachers take that, be like, this is this industrious woman, and look at the husband, he's a bum sitting at the gates. You know what they did at the gates? That's where they sat and judged. He's one of the elders. He is a spiritual leader, and he is there serving, speaking out for the needy and making sure justice is done right. And we see at home his wife is living out that belief. So that as he sits before people and he renders just judgment and he gives wisdom into situations, people know, you know what, your wife, yeah, she's the real deal. I take what you say with some weight. Man, guys, we know your wife can make or break you. I'm glad mine makes me. I couldn't be a quarter of the pastor I am without my wife. And men, you know that. They make or break us. And so, women, this is a way that she is supporting her husband in what he's doing. It's not that he's lazy. She is with him. They are one. It tells us that when she sits among, that she makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchants. Again, we see this idea of her being industrious and working. But then he goes on to say, but strength and dignity are her clothing. Do you see how he quickly goes from, this is the practical thing she's doing, but the deeper matter is that strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She's joyful. She looks through the future with hope because she is working towards it. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. Man, you know that with your moms, hopefully. A good mother, man, you can remember those tender moments when she spoke kindly into your situation. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. And again, it gets at the idea there's no honor in laziness. Now, we all need a break. Moms, you probably need one more than most of us here. And so, husbands, you should do something about that. If you want to help your wife not eat the bread of idleness, give her a break once in a while. Let her go do something fun. Or even just like go to bed on time. It's a novel thought, right? She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, he says. Many. But you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the fruit of her hands and let her works praise her in the gates. Now, as we look at this model, I think we can actually really similarly compare this to the model of teaching that was given us before. I said, the woman teaches where to invest yourself, holy living, responsibility, and to serve and speak for those in need. I think what we see here is a model of where to invest and not invest the best of yourself. We see a model of holy living and responsibility, and we see a model of serving and speaking for those in need. She knows to invest herself. She invests herself in her husband and in his trust. She works to provide for her family and sees that her merchandise is profitable. So she even, dare I say, women, invests a little bit in herself and making sure she's okay, spending time with the Lord. She opens her mouth in wisdom, so she's investing in giving kindness to people. Not investing in laziness, but investing in being productive. She teaches, models holy living and responsibility. You see, so many times it shows here how she cares for her family. That she's not afraid of the snow. They've already got their winter clothes. She's working with willing hands. She's rising before the dawn. And she's taking care of her family. She is exemplifying the responsibility given to us as parents. And she exemplifies holy living. And finally, she serves and speaks to those in need. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. So we see her investing herself as she toils, that it's not just for her and not just for her family, but it's for the greater community at large. She understands that God cares. As I said, God has cared from the beginning. If we look throughout this whole testimony of this book, God says that we are to care for those beyond ourselves. Right off the bat in Genesis 22, God tells Abraham, all nations will be blessed through you. It wasn't just for him. It was for everyone. In Exodus 9:16, we see God speaking to Moses and telling him to tell Pharaoh that Pharaoh was raised up so that God's name would be proclaimed through all the earth. Again, God is concerned, even in the beginning, about the rest of the earth. Yes, he raised up a people for himself, but that people was the avenue for which his love and his goodness and his majesty would be shown to the world. If we look at 1 Kings, when Israel becomes a true nation, we see people from all nations coming to Solomon, seeking out his wisdom, and God blessing the world through his people. Solomon wasn't given wisdom just for governing his people. He was given great wisdom to be a testimony to the nations. We've been working through Nehemiah. And this is one of many times that we see God working through the hearts of foreign kings who do not even sometimes acknowledge God, but he's working in them. Why? So his name would be proclaimed throughout the earth. We know that according to John 3:16, Jesus died for who? All the world, right? Jesus came so that the world would know God's love and his majesty and his deep concern for all people. And when he left, he said, go and make disciples of all nations. And then at the very end of time in Revelation chapter 7, we see this picture that after I look and behold a great multitude that no one could number from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes with palm branches in their hands. The whole testimony of this book is that you are called to care for those beyond yourself because God does. And when we see the Proverbs 31 woman does, is she cares beyond herself. She teaches and models to invest beyond herself. She shows that holy living and responsibility are not just about having my house in order. It's so that I'm a testimony to the world. And she, Proverbs 31 woman, serves and speaks for those in need. Part of her toil is to reach out beyond just her family. Now, there's definitely something honorable. Women, your family definitely is the first ministry God gave you. Man, raise those kids up in the Lord. But this is a deep challenge from God's word to the kind of women that he wants to see in his body. And so will you take the challenge to live this way this morning? Let me close this in prayer.